Welcome those who are joining. Say hello in the chat if you like. Hello, Rick. Welcome. Hello, JRF. Good to see you. It's been a while. Hello, Jay, our Kiwi friend. As usual, just giving time for people to join in. Welcome, Metika. How's video? How's audio? All good? No worries, JRF. I know, like most people who stream on YouTube, more people watch the stream after than they do than they are live. Of course, when people are here live and talking, it makes it a little bit more interesting. It's not just me droning on. Hello, Ian. Welcome. Give it another minute or so and we'll get started. Hello, Kristen. Welcome. The retreat was okay. I'm a little bit tired from the retreat. Every time I give a retreat, even if it's a weekend Zoom retreat, I don't know, I give it my all, and it takes a couple days to recover fully. So I'm not exactly too energetic tonight. All right. Share screen here. We'll get started. Hello, Visaka. Welcome. Where is it? Here we go. We'll do Tilakanagata. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sabbe sankara anicchati yada panyaya passati attani bindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. Sabbe sankara dukkati yada panyaya passati attani bindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. Sabbe Dhamma anattati yadha panyaya passati attani bindati dukke samaggo visuddhiya. English. Impermanent is all that is conditioned. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Unsatisfactory is all that is conditioned. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Without self are all Dhammas. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. All right, friends. It is Monday night. Hello, Dharma learner. Good to see you. And Gregory, good to see you. It's Monday night. That means it's time for another 2-hour festival of Dhamma with the Maggasekha community, Dhammapalooza. So we just got started our Dhammapalooza with some chanting, and we will now get to see what Dhammapalooza will be about this week, because every week Dhammapalooza is a community guided activity. Every time I make a new the live stream on the YouTube, I just put Dhammapalooza in the date, because I don't know what the topic is going to be. I don't know if we're going to be answering lots of questions or I'm going to be reading suttas. We don't know. So right now is a good time. If you have any questions, you can put that in the chat. If you have any topics you would like me to give a talk on, Buddhist topics, you can put that in the chat. Or if you have anything that you'd like the community to discuss, you can put that in the chat. We'll give that a few minutes. And if we don't have anything, then we will read a sutta. As always, I always have a sutta in my back pocket, as I like to say. Hello, Gretchen. Soma Drums. This is a name I'm not familiar with. Is this your first time on the stream with us? Do I know you from the Discord or somewhere else, or is this is a person that I've not met yet before? Oh. Keeping an eye on the chat. Change your YouTube name. All right. All right. Well, I don't see any questions, so maybe we can read a sutta. You're at JRF. You're pretty close to what I have the sutta that I've selected. You recommended possibly Majjhima Nikaya number 49. I selected Majjhima Nikaya number 46. A couple of weeks ago, we did the lesser discourse on the taking up of practices. And I've been waiting to see when we might have. It's been a couple Dhammapaloozas since we've read a sutta. So we can read the greater discourses on the taking up of practices. Let me share screen. Maybe next week we'll read Majjhima Nikaya number 49. The greater discourse on the taking up of practices. So I have heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. There the Buddha addressed the mendicants. Mendicants, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Buddha said this. Mendicants, sentient beings typically have the wish, the desire, the hope. Oh, if only unlikable, undesirable, and disagreeable things would decrease, and likable, desirable, and agreeable things would increase. But exactly the opposite happens to them. What do you take to be the reason for this? That's a great one. I really like that. Beings wish only good things happen, no bad things happen, but then the opposite happens. So, what do you take to be the reason for this? And they respond, our teachings are rooted in the Buddha. He is our guide and our refuge. So may the Buddha himself please clarify the meaning of this. The mendicants will listen and remember it. Well then, mendicants, listen and apply your mind. Well, I will speak. Yes, sir, they replied. The Buddha said this. Take an unlearned, ordinary person who has not seen the noble ones and is neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of the noble ones. They've not seen true persons and are neither skilled nor trained in the teaching of true persons. They don't know what practices they should cultivate and foster, and what practices they shouldn't cultivate and foster. Hello, Jayantha, welcome. So they cultivate and foster practices they shouldn't. So they cultivate and foster practices they shouldn't, and don't cultivate and foster practices they should. When they do so, unlikable, undesirable, and disagreeable things increase, and likable, desirable, and agreeable things decrease. So we have right here the Buddha is connecting what you choose to develop to whether likable or disagreeable things will increase. Why is that? Because that's what it's like for someone who doesn't know. But a learned and noble disciple has seen the noble ones and is skilled and trained in the teaching of the noble ones. They've seen true persons and are skilled and trained in the teaching of true persons. They know what practices they should cultivate and foster and what practices they shouldn't cultivate and foster. So they cultivate and foster practices they should, and don't cultivate and foster practices they shouldn't. So this is really a theme of right effort here. When they do so, unlikable, desirable, and disagreeable things decrease, and likable, desirable, and agreeable things increase. Why is that? Because that's what it's like for someone who knows. Mendicants, there are these 4 ways of taking up practices. What for? There is a way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain. There's a way of taking up practices that is pleasant now, but results in future pain. There's a way of taking up practices that is painful now, but results in future pleasure. There is a way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain, an ignoramus, without knowing this, doesn't truly understand. I'm interested to see what word Bante Sujato is translating as ignoramus. See. This is called a poly break, a poly timeout. Yeah, fool who is ignorant, not having knowing quality. An ignoramus, without knowing this, doesn't truly understand. This is the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain. So instead of avoiding that practice, they cultivate it. When they do so, unlikable, undesirable, and disagreeable things increase. And likable, desirable, and agreeable things decrease. Why is that? Because that's what it's like for someone who doesn't know. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pain, an ignoramus cultivates it and disagreeable things increase. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pleasure, an ignoramus doesn't cultivate it and disagreeable things increase. So even though it might be hard, but then you benefit from it later, still doesn't cultivate it. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure, an ignoramus doesn't cultivate it, and disagreeable things increase. Why is that? Because that's what it's like for someone who doesn't know. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain, a wise person knowing this truly understands. This is the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain. So instead of cultivating that practice, they avoid it. When they do so, unlikable, undesirable, and disagreeable things decrease, and likable, desirable, and agreeable things increase. So, by the way, whenever we're reading suttas, if you have any questions or you'd like me to clarify, definitely put that in the chat. And because I do check the chat as we're reading, and so this way, for people coming in, if there's any questions, etc. All right. I see we do have some comments and questions, but we'll hold those off until the end of the sutta. When they do so, unlikable, undesirable, and disagreeable things decrease, and likable, desirable, and agreeable things increase. Why is that? Because that's what it's like for someone who knows. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pain, a wise person doesn't cultivate it, and agreeable things increase. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pleasure, a wise person cultivates it, and agreeable things increase. When it comes to the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure, a wise person knowing this truly understands. This is the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure. So instead of avoiding that practice, they cultivate it. When they do so, unlikable, undesirable, and disagreeable things decrease, and likable, desirable, and agreeable things increase. Why is that? Because that's what it's like for someone who knows. And what is the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain? It's when someone in pain and sadness kills living creatures, steals, and commits sexual misconduct. They use speech that's false, divisive, harsh, and nonsensical, and their covetousness, malicious with wrong view. Because of these things, they experience pain and sadness. So you have the precepts there, you have right speech, greed and hatred, wrong view. Not good things, not good qualities and activities that lead to anything skillful. Because of these things, they experience pain and sadness. And when their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a plane of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. This is called the way of taking up practices that is painful now and results in future pain. And what is the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now but results in future pain? It's when someone with pleasure and happiness kills living creatures, steals, commits sexual misconduct. They use speech that's false, divisive, harsh, and nonsensical. And they're covetous, malicious, and wrong view. Because of these things, they experience pleasure and happiness. Let me see something. Wanna For somebody in pain. Okay, so this is like you're doing these unskillful things, but you're not exactly liking it or having pleasure from it. And then the second time is you're having pleasure from it, doing the same actions. But whether it's painful or pleasant now, it results in future pain. But when their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld hell. This is called the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now but results in future pain. And what is the way of taking up practices that is painful now but results in future pleasure? It's when someone in pain and sadness doesn't kill living creatures, steal, or commit sexual misconduct. They don't use speech that's false, divisive, harsh, or nonsensical. And they're contented, kind hearted, with right view. Because of these things, they experience pain and sadness. But when their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. This is called the way of taking up practices that is painful now, but results in future pleasure. And what is the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure? It's when someone with pleasure and happiness doesn't kill living creatures, steal, or commit sexual misconduct. They don't use speech that's false, divisive, harsh, or nonsensical. And they are contented, kind hearted, with the right view. Because of these things, they experience pleasure and happiness. And when their body breaks up after death, they're reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. This is called the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure. These are the four ways of taking up practices. Suppose there was some bitter gourd and mixed with poison. Bitter gourd's very, very beloved, at least in Sri Lanka, I'm sure probably in India, very beloved dish. But if you taste bitter things, it is really bitter. People love it though. Suppose there was some bitter gourd mixed with poison. Then a man would come along who wants to live and doesn't want to die, who wants to be happy and recoils in pain from pain. They'd say to him, "Here, mister, this is bitter gourd mixed with poison. Drink it if you like." No thanks. For me, even without the poison. If you drink it, the color, aroma, and flavor will be unappetizing, and it will result in death or deadly pain. He wouldn't reject it without reflection. He'd drink it. The color, aroma, and flavor would be unappetizing, and it would result in death or deadly pain. This is comparable to the way of taking a practices that is painful now and results in future pain, I say. Suppose there was a bronze cup or beverage that had a nice color, aroma, and flavor, but it was mixed with poison. Then a man would come along who wants to live and doesn't want to die, who wants to be happy and recoils from pain. They'd say to him, "Here, mister, this bronze cup of beverage has a nice color, aroma, and flavor, but it's mixed with poison. Drink it if you like. If you drink it, the color, aroma, and flavor will be unappetizing, but it will result in death or deadly pain. Or will be appetizing, sorry, but will result in death or deadly pain." He wouldn't reject it. Without rejection, he'd drink it. The color, aroma, and flavor would be appetizing, but it would result in death or deadly pain. This is comparable to the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and result in future pain, I say. Suppose there was some fermented urine mixed with different medicines. Then a man with jaundice would come along. They'd say to him, "Here, mister, this is fermented urine mixed with different medicines. Drink it if you like. If you drink it, the color, aroma, and flavor will be unappetizing, but after drinking it, you will be happy." He wouldn't reject it. After appraisal, he'd drink it. The color, aroma, and flavor would be unappetizing, but after drinking it, he would be happy. This is where we come up with the phrase, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." Medicine these days is flavored in such a way so that we don't it's not bad tasting, but medicine throughout history has been like this. This is comparable to the way of taking up practices that is painful now but results in future pleasure, I say. Suppose there was some curds, honey, ghee, and molasses all mixed together. Then a man with bloody dysentery would come along. They'd say to him, "Here, mister, this is curds, honey, ghee, and molasses all mixed together. Drink it if you like. If you drink it, the color, aroma, and flavor will be appetizing, and after drinking it, you will be happy." He wouldn't reject it. After appraisal, he'd drink it. The color, aroma, and flavor would be appetizing, and after drinking it, he would be happy. This is comparable to the way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure, I say. It's like the time after the rainy season when the sky is clear and cloudless, and when the sun arises, it dispels all the darkness from the sky as it shines and glows and radiates. In the same way, this way of taking up practices that is pleasant now and results in future pleasure dispels the doctrines of various other ascetics and Brahmins as it shines and glows and radiates. This is what the Buddha said. Satisfied, the mendicants approved of what the Buddha said. Sad. All right. Let's see, we have some questions. Okay. All Dharma learner? No, not everybody is ready to hear the Dhamma or connected to it. It's just the way it goes. And it also could be maybe they're not connected to the specific place they're visiting. That could also be part of it. Gregory has a question here. When practicing metta, how does one wish all beings to be well without feelings of hypocrisy when you might have to compete with them for jobs or to argue against them to others? So, this is not just metta, though, is it? This is also mudita, appreciative joy. Yes, you might have to compete with them, and maybe sometimes you're ahead, maybe sometimes they're ahead, but you can still have goodwill for them. Yeah, you can reflect. We're all beings, sub siblings in suffering, stuck in this samsaric state. We're all trying to chase after our happiness, to run away from pain, as the Buddha said in the sutta. One desiring pleasure and shirking away from pain. Right? This is kind of the natural, normal thing that we do, and we might have to compete in such a way, but I don't have to do it with an ill will in my mind. You can do these reflections. And if sometimes you're not perfect and your metta is maybe not that great, and it'll feel like you're being a hypocrite because you can feel you'll be practicing metta, but there still be a lot like attachment in your mind, still like like the kind of negative feelings towards a coworker or somebody, a competitor. And that's okay. You just recognize that that's in your mind. And you say, no, them too. Even though I have this agitation towards them or this kind of anxiety because they're a competitor of mine, them as well. And actively choosing to make sure that you give metta to them. And when you do that, then it won't be like it. You won't be a hypocrite. It's just what is arising in your mind, the normal, natural way that your mind reacts and understands people who you might be competing with. Right? This is an ancient, human beings are built for both competition and cooperation. Sometimes, and where we do both. There's no such thing as all we do is compete or all we do is cooperate. That doesn't exist. That's not reality. So there's always some level of mixture in there. And so the idea is to have goodwill no matter what your kind of juxtaposition, whatever your placement with the person, you have goodwill for them. And that takes time, and you have to work for that. You have to work on that. It's not doesn't just come easy. Remember, just because a thought has arisen or feelings arise doesn't mean that you just accept it as yours and you just accept it unquestioningly. You investigate it, you question it, you counteract it, you understand it. I realize one in theory competition shouldn't matter, but sometimes I feel either insincere. Okay. Yeah, no. If you feel insincere, you fake it till you make it. You say, okay, there's a part of me. You have to realize if you observe the mind, you see that there's a part of you that is like lizard brain, right? Oh, this is competitor. Well, just shoot him, just kill him. And then there's a part of you like, no, I don't think so. We live in society. This is not like the Wild West or the ancient plains, 100,000 years ago. Right? And so there's a part of you that's always going to have that kind of. It's a part that gives you an answer to a problem without any morality involved. I'll just do it. Don't worry about it. Right? And so, but we have to be aware of that part that's in us, part of our mind. Right? So there's different parts of our mind that are coming in and giving us advice, telling us, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? No, don't do this. Right? So just because one part of your mind is resistant to giving metta to the person doesn't mean you're a hypocrite, or it doesn't mean that you're insincere. just means that there's a part of your mind that is not too happy about it. It's not ready to let go of and be okay with such a thing. I feel like it's hard for my family to experience something new being from Italian background. How did it go when you shared your interest of the Dhamma? I didn't. Why would I? The the Dhamma is my path. It's not their path. No, I have never shared my interest of the Dhamma with anybody who wasn't a fellow Dhamma practitioner. Unless they asked, unless people were interested and asked questions, then yes. But just like it's the rule that Buddhist monks can't give a Dhamma teaching without being asked first, I just didn't feel like I ever needed to share any Buddhism with anybody. You know, People have to come to it and come around to it, or be interested in it on their own accord. The only thing I guess you could think of in terms of sharing that I did was before I became a monk, I wanted to do kind of like one last like family vacation with my family, and I also wanted to kind of have them see the monastery that I've been visiting for 3 years and that I'm going to stay. I wanted to have them to because I know that fear arises from not knowing, that uncertainty. But if you see a place, then it doesn't look like some wacky cult place or, whatever fears are in your mind. Right? So I wanted them to kind of just see the place. And so we did very briefly. We stopped by. They were in the middle. It was the morning, and they were doing an opposite of things, so we couldn't like really stop, and they couldn't really meet like Bante G and things like that. They very briefly met Bante Silananda, but that was like the only time that the worlds collided in that way, and that was just because I was leaving, and I wanted them to at least have a glimpse of where I would be staying. All right, so my drums. Is stream entry a realistic goal to achieve as a layperson? Yeah, of course. If so, how would you know you have achieved it? I'm assuming you would need to ask an enlightenment advanced monk for no, no, not at all. Bante G, my preceptor Bante Gunaratana would say, if you have to ask me if you're a stream enter, you're not a stream enter. Right? This is something that you know for yourself, that you have eradicated the first three fetters. You have had that glimpse of nibbana. Your doubt is vanished. If you're kind of like, am I a stream enter? Like, I don't really have many doubts. I don't really do the really rites and rituals. You're not a stream enter. That's not how it works. There's many aspects of the path, like jhana. People will say like, was this jhana? Oh, I think I maybe that's a little bit of PT. Maybe that's jhana. No, no, no. You know when you're in jhana. Right? So if you don't really think you're in jhana, you're not in jhana. Like I can pretty much say that I've never been in jhana. I've been close. I've had jhana quality stuff, but I've never been in jhana, right? But there's been experience I've had where like I knew something just 100% for sure. Like this is true. This is happening, etc. Right? So because I've had the experiences of having this like surety of understanding that I'm experiencing something or I have reached something, then I can understand, okay, yeah, this is I'd have that if I became a stream mentor or if I got into jhana. And since I haven't had either, I have not been in either. Right. So it's kind of almost very scammy. Like I've met, like when I was at Bhavana, I met thousands of people, and I met people who's like, my preceptor says, authorizes that I'm a stream enter, and I'd be like, uh-huh, sure. Like who's that? I forgot the name of that being. Udiya, who met the Buddha for the first time, and the Buddha is like, know me as one who is awakened, and he's like, may it be, friend, and he just walks away. I'm like, oh, your teacher says you're a stream enter? Okay. Yeah, no, I don't believe it. I highly doubt it. So, but no, stream entry is quite doable for lay people. Right? The stream entry, yeah, at the time of the Buddha said there's many, 100, 200, 500, and more laymen, lay women who are stream enters. Not only stream enters, but once returners, and even non-returners. Not really lay arahants. It's quite very, very, very rare for a layperson to become fully awakened. But they become a stream enter? No, I would say there's probably thousands of stream enters on the planet. Easy. Arahants, I would say probably not even dozens. Probably much less than that. Maybe a handful. But stream enters, I think there's a bunch, and I think it's quite doable. And as Bante G always encouraged, he says, at the very least, you should aim and practice for stream entry because it's a money back guarantee. Once you're a stream enter, you're locked in. No hell realms, no animal realms. Seven up to 7 more lives, and you're done. Samsara is done. So it's a very, very good, important goal for all of us. Obviously, my goal in this lifetime is awakening. But if I make stream entry, I'm happy. If I die as a stream enter, not bad. Better than nothing. At least I know I just got to stick through 7 more lifetimes or less, right? Up to 7 lifetimes more. I My job is almost done if I know when I'm a stream enter. So everybody should aim for stream entry. And how do you become a stream enter? You follow the Noble Eightfold Path. Follow the Noble Eightfold Path honestly, sincerely, dedicatedly, all aspects of the path. The dana, the sila, the bhavana, the sila, samadhi, the panya, all aspects of the path. If you honestly, sincerely dedicate your life to the path, you'll become a stream enter. Maybe not in this lifetime. I don't know. The causes and conditions may be there, they may not be. But eventually you will become a stream enter. You stumbled upon the Dhamma accidentally. You sure? You sure it wasn't past karma? You sure it wasn't a past aspiration, a common Buddhist aspiration? May I be born in a place in another life where I can hear the Dhamma and practice the Dhamma. How do you know you've gotten to access concentration? So access concentration, or what Bante called jhanic quality concentration, is not really something you see in the suttas. This is something first kind of um, talked about in the Visuddhimagga. But it is something that I have experienced. And it is so if whenever I hit the jhanas as a monk, I can't tell you. But since I haven't hit the jhanas yet, or I'm talking about something before jhanas, I can talk about it. But monks are not allowed to talk about their attainments from jhana up. I can never tell you if I'm a stream enter, or once returner, non-returner, jhana. I can't tell you these things. But jhana quality or access is concentration or stillness, samadhi, that has the qualities, some qualities, not all the qualities of jhana, but some. For some people, they might have piti. I don't think I've ever experienced piti. Not from what I've see how it's described in the suttas, or from other people who say they have. I don't think I've ever experienced piti, but I have experienced some other qualities from the jhana list, and I've even seen the nimitta. Right, so I've gotten kind of like right at the doorstep of jhana, and so you can notice that you are in a very deep state that's very different than the normal. I'm just following my breath, and even still, you can't really confirm it. It took me many years before I realized, oh, I think this experience that I've had is probably jhanic quality concentration or access concentration. So you can't really know for sure like you would if you get into jhanas, but you can make a best guesstimate. And either way, the idea, even if you get into jhanas, the idea is not like, oh man, I got into jhanas, this is great. So, oh, you got into jhanas? Okay, well, now you have to keep practicing, keep developing your jhana, so you get to the second jhana, then to the third, then to the fourth, and then you can start seeing things in the most deep possible way. And then you can really ramp up your vipassana. You're seeing things as they are, and make it an easier ride to awakening. But at any time you get kind of excited or egoistic about it, just doesn't come back. Trust me, excitement is the bane of getting into deep states of concentration. I know that experience for myself personally. Um, the important thing is, though, don't get wrapped up in, is this state, is that state. Follow your breath. Just kind of watch the process, observe the process. See how the mind is becoming unified on the object. See how the mind is becoming quiet. See how the mind is um, completely content to be with the breath. Right? Observe your detachment from the breath. These kind of things. You observe what's happening, not trying to label it, not trying to say this is this, that is this. Just observing the experience, trying to understand the experience. And then that will allow you to, as you understand it, you'll know how to get back there. You'll know what to do, what you need to do. All right. So we are at the end of questions. Perhaps not, perhaps not. Yeah, don't get wrapped up in it. Like don't, whatever you got in the past is in the past. right? Sit down, you follow the breath again. Try to follow it as deep as you can. This is when I do the guided meditations. What do I say? I say, the breath is always there, ready for you to follow it towards a calm and tranquil mind. That's all you need to do. You don't have to put a lot of activity and and thought and all kinds of things. You just have to follow the breath. Just stick with the breath. You get distracted, you come back. You get distracted, you come back. You get less distracted over time. You keep staying with the breath, and it's like it's leading you down the rabbit hole. You don't have to do anything fancy. You really don't. Actually, it's letting go that allows you to go deeper. If you're trying to get somewhere, or you're trying to identify and figure out why you're following, no, that's mental agitation, mental activity that's going to keep you from going deeper. Letting go, just observing. You can observe something without any mental vocalization, without any, what's this? Oh, I don't know. What's it? No, you just like a bare, quiet observance of understanding what this is. You just keep following the breath. The Buddha literally says that the breath will lead you to awakening. You don't have to do anything fancy. You keep going back to the breath. Follow the breath. That's all you need to do. The deepest meditations I've ever been in, all I did was follow the breath, with no expectations, with no thinking and intellectualizing and all these things. Just following the breath. Getting away and coming back. Getting away and coming back. That's it. It really is that simple, but it's also really hard to master. It's not easy, right? Simple, but not easy. Instructions are simple. Follow through, not easy. Hello, Kenny Rivera. This is a name I'm not familiar with. Is this your first time with us? Yeah, the past 10 years my meditation has blossomed more from letting go and stop forcing things. Exactly. Exactly. I think one of my quotes from my earlier days was like, becoming awakened is a hard battle, but it's a battle you don't win by fighting. And what I mean by that is letting go. Right? It's much more about letting go than it is about actively doing something. Look at the Anapanasati Sutta. Right? You see the 16 steps. It's a gradual letting go, calming, tranquilizing the mind, and people kind of misunderstand this as I have to actively train to tranquilize the mind, right? And all you're doing is the opposite of tranquilizing. No, this is training doesn't mean always that you are actively doing something. Sometimes the only actively thing you're doing is actively letting go. Actively letting go. That's how you tranquilize the body. That's how you tranquilize the mind. You don't create tranquilization. You let go. There's actually very little intentional action in anapanasati. When you start to get towards the last groupings, like the vipassana, where you're like aiming your mind towards impermanence, cessation, etc., that's a bit more active. But even that doesn't necessarily need to be active. That, in many ways, also can just be in like a bare, nonverbal awareness of that thing. All right. Well, we've been talking about Samadhi for the last 10 minutes or so, and we're out of questions. So why don't we meditate? So set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable. Oh, all right. I'll have to address this real quick. Doesn't Ajahn Jeff encourage active imagination to get the breath to feel more comfortable? Yeah, Ajahn Lee's um meditation teaching of like the breath going through the body and all that stuff, that's definitely not sutta based. That's like the only thing, that's the only thing of Tenisara Bhikkhu that feels so kind of off, out of left field, right? Because Tenisara was really sutta based in almost everything. And then you do a guided meditation from him and it's like, follow the breath down through the legs. And I'm like, huh? What's going on here? I'm not downing it. I practice it. I gave it a good couple months of really trying. And I mean, I think I did get some benefit from it for briefly in terms of a little bit of tranquility, but it wasn't really something that that I cared for, connected with. It felt kind of out there. So it wasn't my thing. Yeah, Dharma learner. I keep hearing about the sound of silence, but I really don't know much about it. I even like when I was at Abhayagiri or when I was in Australia, if it came up, I'd ask like the monks, like, what do you know about this? And like, I think it might be about X or Y, but I'm not quite sure. Yeah. Soma, would an hour 2 hours per day of meditation be enough for a layperson to achieve stream entry? I've read it's essential that longer meditative sessions are needed to achieve higher attainment. Higher attainments in terms of jhanas. If all you're doing is sitting around meditating, that's not what gets you to stream entry. Because you're not doing the rest of the Noble Eightfold Path. Doing the full Noble Eightfold Path is what gets you to stream entry. Right action, right speech, right livelihood. All of that is just as important. Right intention, just as important as sitting for an hour or two a day. So it's not about how much time you're meditating. Not only that, samasati is off the cushion, right? So you're practicing samasati, all of your waking hours. If you're good, if you're developing it well. So I wouldn't be too worried about number of hours on the cushion for stream entry. Especially if your meditation starts getting bad and you start to doubt. It's like, I don't know about this stuff. And then like, well, yeah, that's definitely not stream entry. So no, I would say follow the Noble Eightfold Path. No, it's not just about sitting on the cushion. Sitting on the cushion is important. I'm not saying it's not, but it's put way too much emphasis is put on just the cushion, especially in relation to the Noble Eightfold Path. How you practicing your right speech on the cushion? Well, maybe towards yourself, like internal speech, you practice your right speech, but you're not practicing right speech and developing right speech, engaging with other people. Right action. How you practicing right action on the cushion? Right. So, it's a holistic path. It's not just sit on the cushion. If it was, that would be easier. Oh, this right speech thing is really hard. Maybe if I just sit on the cushion forever, then I won't have to worry about right speech. No, you have to develop it. You have to hone your speech in the world. You have to make mistakes. You have to transgress. This is how one grows in the Dhamma. I've read many monks only meditate for 30 minutes a day. Well, many monks don't meditate at all in the Buddhist world. So that's 30 minutes a day is not bad. Could be worse. All right. So let's meditate. 8:02. So we'll meditate for a half hour. Set your body up in whatever comfortable and stable position works for you. We'll start by doing a scan of the body, starting from the feet, moving up to the top of the head. This mindful scan we do for two reasons. First is to slowly bring our mind from the external to the internal, from getting wrapped up in all the activities of the day in your world, to focusing on the world of this mind and body. And the second is to understand our posture and to set our body up in such a way that it can sit for longer periods of time with less pain and discomfort. So start by placing your focus and attention on the feet. By that I mean to focus in on any feeling or sensation in that part of the body, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor, the cushion, the opposite leg, etc. Move up through the ankles into the calves. through the knees into the thighs. What's the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair, cushion? Up through to the hips and pelvis. Pelvis is a very important part of your posture to pay attention to. Its position impacts both the legs and the spine. This part of the body is especially important if you're sitting on a meditation cushion in regards to the sits bones of your buttocks. The sits bones are evenly balanced and level on the cushion. If you notice that they're not level, you can observe that the spine is janked and bent. It's a very important part of the body to pay close attention to for your posture. When you're ready, move up the spine through the abdomen and the chest, observing that the spine is not leaning or slouching here or there, nor that you're trying to force it straight and up. Either of these will cause strain in your back and will lead to back pain as you meditate. Ideally, your spine should be just resting comfortably in its neutral position. This way, you have full, unrestricted breathing. Move up to the shoulders, making sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. down through to the hips and down through to the elbows and hands, observing how the position of the elbows and hands also impacts your posture, impacts your spine. And then finally up to the head, checking that the head is also not leaning and slouching here or there, chin parallel to the floor. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, do your best to not control or manipulate the breath in any way. Your body has been breathing from the moment you were born, will continue to do so until the second you die. Doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. The body breathes in, the body breathes out. As you're following your breath, your mind may become bored, will seek to run away to the past or the future, across the world, into various stories and fantasies, or an external distraction like a sound will arise. Your mind will become attached to it, chase after it. When this happens, you will be unmindful and lost for a time. It will slowly start to dawn on you that you've been taken away from the breath. At that point, acknowledge you've been taken away from the breath and start to bring back your mindfulness and focus. Practice letting go of the distraction by neither getting agitated and pushing it away, nor by continuing to be attached to it and grabbing onto it. Try to do your best to let it go, to let it be, to give it no energy, focus, or attention. Simply let it go on its way and then return to the breath. So, whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Always come back to the breath. The breath is home base. It's always there doing its thing, ready for you to come follow it towards a more calm and tranquil mind. Every once in a while, as you're following your breath, check in with the state of your mind. Is your mind becoming more calm and tranquil or not? If it is, you may begin to notice more subtle, deeper characteristics of the breath. Sometimes the breath is long and deep, sometimes short and shallow. See if you can start to observe and investigate the changing nature of the breath as the body's breathing in and out. Slowly start to open your eyes, moving from the internal to the external, becoming aware of the room around you and your body in it, reflecting on the state of your mind now compared to before the meditation, and reflecting on any experiences you may have had during the meditation. While you do so, we'll read some Dhammapada as we begin to close out for the night. Although we do have some time, so if you do have a question or so, you can put it in there while I'm reading the Dhammapada. We finished up the Dhammapada last time, so we're back to the beginning again. Pairs. Mind precedes all states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him as the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind wrought. If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like his never departing shadow. He abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who harbor such thoughts do not still their hatred. He abused me, he struck me, he overpowered me, he robbed me. Those who do not harbor such thoughts, those who, oh, I'm sorry. Those who do not harbor such thoughts still their hatred. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is a law eternal. There are those who do not realize that one day we all must die. But those who do realize this settle their quarrels. Just as a storm throws down a weak tree, so does Mada overpower the man who lives for the pursuit of pleasures, who is uncontrolled in his senses, immoderate in eating, indolent, and dissipated. Just as a storm cannot prevail against a rocky mountain, so Mada can never overpower the man who lives meditating on the impurities, who is controlled in his senses, moderate in eating, and filled with faith and earnest effort. Whomever being depraved, devoid of self control and truthfulness, should don the monk's yellow robe, he surely is not worthy of the robe. But whoever is purged of depravity, well established in virtues, and filled with self control and truthfulness, he indeed is worthy of the yellow robe. Those who mistake the unessential to be essential, and the essential to be unessential, dwelling in wrong thoughts, never arrive at the essential. Those who know the essential to be essential, and the unessential to be unessential, dwelling in right thoughts, do arrive at the essential. Just as rain breaks through an ill thatched house, so passion penetrates an undeveloped mind. Just as rain does not break through a well thatched house, so passion never penetrates a well developed mind. The evildoer grieves here and hereafter. He grieves in both the worlds. He laments and is afflicted, recollecting his own impure deeds. The doer of good rejoices here and hereafter. He rejoices in both worlds. He rejoices and exults, recollecting his own pure deeds. The evildoer suffers here and hereafter. He suffers in both worlds. The thought, evil have I done, torments him, and he suffers even more when gone to the realms of woe. The doer of good delights here and hereafter. He delights in both worlds. The thought, good have I done, delights him, and he delights even more when gone to realms of bliss. Much though he recites the sacred texts, but acts not accordingly. That heedless man is like a cowherd who only counts the cows of others. He does not partake of the blessings of the holy life. Little though he recites the sacred texts, but puts the teachings into practice, forsaking lust and hatred and delusion. With true wisdom and emancipated mind, clinging to nothing of this or any other world, he indeed partakes of the blessings of a holy life. Rick Thorne has a question. Bante, what causes us to feel like we are floating 6 inches above the cushion when we're entering deep meditation? I don't know. Maybe you are. I'm not sure, Rick. I've never had that experience. I could only speculate. In deep states of meditation, uh, or even, there's a wide world of experiences you might have. This is why the Buddha qualifies things like samadhi with Dhamma samadhi, right? Samadhi. So all kinds of things can happen when the mind, there's in many ways, deep meditation mirrors like psychedelic experience, or at least I'm told. So maybe there could be experiences where you feel kind of light, uplifted, and maybe your mind kind of equates that to like, oh, this is like floating 6 inches above the cushion. This is what the mind does. I'll give a for instance. I've had a few times in my meditation, and if I have experienced rapture, this is probably the closest. This is, I don't know that it's rapture, but I've had this very exhilarating, pleasant experience. And when it first happened, my mind was searching for a similar experience I've had to say, oh, this is like this. And my mind instantly came up to the first second or two after I jumped out of the plane when I went skydiving. And so my mind's like, oh, yeah, no, this is like that experience. So maybe it's something related to that. I'm not sure. There's a wide variety of experiences one can have when they sit down on the cushion to practice. All right, friends. I guess we'll do our final business, then share merits and call it a night. So if you're joining us for the first time or watching this later, maybe seeing this and you're watching for the first time and you would like to get more information about myself and the organization Maggasekha, Students of the Path, you can go to the website scrolling below in the ticker. The website maggasekha.org, MAGGASEKHA.org. On this website, you can find my writings, announcements. Like we just did a Zoom retreat this weekend. We're doing another Zoom retreat at the end of September. So you can find out when we do various live streams, articles, etc., etc. I'm in the middle of writing an article series on the Maggasekha way, the Buddhist attitudes. So you can go to that website, and on the top right, you can put your email in, and anytime I post something, you'll be notified via email whenever I post something new, a new announcement, article, video, etc. You can also click the like button and click the little bell thing on YouTube, and then anytime I go live or a new video comes out, etc., you will get an email notification. So we also have our Maggasekha Sangha community on Discord program. This is a community that both studies and practices accords with the suttas, the early texts. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can send an email to the email listed on screen, maggasekha@gmail.com, and ask for an invite, and we'll send you an invite. Now, in terms of Maggasekha activities, every Monday night, of course, every activity is dependent on if I'm in a place with internet or, if I'm in a place I'm able to do things. But whenever I'm in a place, Monday night, 7 p.m., Dhammapalooza, 7 p.m. New York time. Then Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. New York time, Eastern, GMT -5. 8 a.m. Monday through Friday is morning monastery experience, which is a half hour, basically meant to be exactly what its title says. It's like the experience of being at a monastery in the morning, what they call the morning puja. So there's precepts, a little bit of chanting, and then hearing the Dhamma, me giving some commentary, and then me giving a little Dhamma teaching every day. Right. So this is a good way to start the day off in the morning, 8 a.m. New York time. So Monday through Friday, you're welcome to join us. We have a little group of regulars between like maybe 8 to 10 people who join us every day. Start the day off with Dhamma. It's a good thing to do. And then Saturdays at 3 p.m., if you have the Insight Timer program, I do an Insight Timer session every Saturday, unless I'm doing a retreat or traveling, etc. And so this is lots of different activities, and you sign up to get notifications. You'll find out all about them. So why don't we share screen before we call it a night? Share our merit. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, sokha patta chane sokha, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata chamehi sampatang punya sampadang, sabbe deva namodantu sabba sampatti siddhya, akasatta jabumata deva naga mahiddika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit of ours that we've thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, friends. Well, this is the end of another Dhammapalooza. Suki Hotu, may you be well and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which, if I'm alive, might be next Monday, might be tomorrow for Morning Monastery Experience. Who knows? Maybe we'll connect again on a stream. So have a good week. Hello, Jan.